Support Moody Proclamation 2017 BCSMSSA.
Next item, we have another delegation from the BC Society for Male Survivors of Sexual Abuse. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for receiving me. I'm Stephanie Tofield. I am co-founder and chair of the BC Society for Male Survivors of Sexual Abuse. We provide therapeutic services for males who have been sexually abused as children or sexually exploited as youth, and sexually assaulted as adults, very common. The BC Society has provided treatment and advocacy services for over 11,000 men over the last 28 years we've been operating. It's estimated that about 17% of all males and all boys are sexually abused before the age of 18. So in Port Moody alone, then, that would amount to over 3,000 boys and men who are living with the trauma of sexual exploitation or sexual assault sometime in their life. The resulting dysfunction of this experience, mental and emotional discomfort and hurt, is carried forward into their lives. And most people manage it privately. And by manage, I mean that they stuff it very deeply down. And they ignore it. They abuse alcohol. They abuse drugs. They have terrible relationships at home and at work, if they work. They self-medicate. They dispute. They deal with depression and anxiety and often suicide or thoughts of suicide. That's prevalent. They addict. They distract. They underachieve. They underemploy. They experience runaway frustration and rage. They don't do this because they were sexually abused. They do this because they can't talk about it. Society won't permit the conversation to happen. Male victimization doesn't fit our paradigm of what it means to be male. So they suffer in silence. I'm here to request that the City of Port Moody adopt our proclamation and to name April as Male Survivors of Sexual Abuse Awareness Month. We've done this every year for 28 years. Port Moody has supported us before in this. Healing begins with acknowledgement. By adopting this proclamation, you're acknowledging the experience of male survivors of sexual abuse and provide for the survivors of Port Moody that fundamental first step toward recovery. I have 1 minute and 37 seconds, which may or may not be long enough to read the proclamation, but shall I?
You might as well give it a shot. Yep.
Whereas the problem of child sexual abuse persists in an atmosphere of silence and ignorance, and whereas the problem of boyhood sexual exploitation is often overlooked, neglected, and poorly understood, and whereas while efforts to protect female children from sexual victimization and rehabilitative services provided to those who are traumatized are underway, collectively applying these same efforts on behalf of male children has lagged. Whereas boys who are sexually abused usually lack appropriate adult male role models and mentors to assist them in their recovery, provide support during any prosecution, and advocate on their behalf with other adults and organizations, and as a result sustain additional trauma and suffer developmentally. And whereas it is encouraged that all adult survivors provide appropriate nurturing, support, and guidance to sexual abuse victims as they are able. And whereas all adult survivors advocate for the prevention of childhood sexual abuse and for the development of effective and comprehensive recovery and rehabilitative programs for victims within the limits of his or her governmental and cultural restrictions and to the extent that he or she is able.
Perfect timing.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Is there somebody that wants to make them? Anybody have any questions for the delegation? Is there a motion on the table? Councillor Junker?
I'll move recommendation 3.
Second.
So the recommendation is that it be brought to a future council meeting for consideration.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next item is minutes from March 7th. Oh, sorry. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.